everyone, welcome back to RTS and welcome back to another start to finish layout. Yes, my favorite thing to do here on this channel. And if there's a certain feature or a certain topic that you like on this channel, definitely check out our playlist. And I have a playlist created for just about everything because I like things concise and contained. Yes. Okay, so our start to finish layouts are under the playlist Record This Story, because that's what RTS stands for, Record This Story. And of course we play off that RTS. Okay, so today I'm going to be working on a 2-page layout again. Yes, I'm going to crack out another one. And it's going to be a simple one, but it's something I want to do. And it is based on the load prompt of day 3 of the load event that happened in October. And I noticed that a lot of people like me talking about the load prompts and how I take my spin on that. So I'm going to try not to rush through that, because sometimes I feel like maybe it's too much chit chatter. But you know, you can always fast forward to the end of the video and see the finished layout if you don't want to hear a bunch of chit chatter. But I like chatty people. So there you go. So the prompt for day 3 of load, and of course this is all based on Broadway rhythm and musicals and things like that, is the musical from 1947 called Brigadoon. Okay, now I don't want to give too much away from that musical because I haven't seen it completely yet, but I just noticed that if you're an Amazon Prime member, it is included. So hop over and check out that musical, Brigadoon. Okay, and the prompt was a book or a play or a film or a movie or a series that you totally get lost in, submerged in, and then why? Or you could leave room for a long story on your page, or Scottish plaid. Okay, now Scottish plaid. Okay, so we have a little bit of chit chatter, so just grab a cup of coffee. Okay, so you know that if you add the word Scottish plaid, and if you add in the word book or series, you know where a lot of people went. They went to the Outlander series and books. So if you were a ScrapHappy member, you got to see all that, and you got to see people's take on that and why they like that series and the books, because of the Scottish plaid and things like that. So, okay. So if you want to be a ScrapHappy member and have access to the load event that happens in October, there's information listed below and a discount code that's good till the end of the year. So definitely check that out. That coupon, that discount is going to be ending in a few weeks. So, you know, hop over. If you have any questions, just ask me or email Alice. Okay. So, let's get cracking. So how did I take my prompt? Well, first of all, I saw the word Scottish plaid, and so I thought, well, that's what I'm going to do. And so then I thought, you know, because of the musical Brigadoon, it has to do about a hunting trip. And so what I decided to do was break out some photos from a place we visited several years ago, and it was called Cabela's, and it's a huge outdoor sportsman type of, it's not just a store, it's an adventure. It really is. Okay, now some of my photos I will not show because it does have to do with sportsman type photos, and I don't, you know, I want to be sensitive about that. So I will only show a couple of my photos that will actually land on my layout. But my photos came from a mini album, and mini albums were something, they were something I did for many years, and I've created many themed albums, little mini themed albums, and it's a quick way to introduce people into scrapbooking and a quick way to do an actual event or a trip. Now, progress about 10 years later, I don't do themed albums anymore, and I'm in the process of tearing down some of my theme albums and making them into 12 by 12 layouts, because that is my actual style, and I don't foresee me leaving that 12 by 12 format style anytime soon. So that is where my photos all came from. They're all coming from one of these themed albums, because this was an entire trip, and so it's just a day trip, but I took a lot of photos because it's a huge place. Okay, and it was located in Pennsylvania, but it was a trek. It was like 3-4 hour drive one way. Yes, okay. So that is what I'm going to do today, and the Scottish plaid made me think of the Jen Hatfield collection that I recently was playing with called Warm and Cozy, and I was thinking of these type of papers here. So now let's just talk a little bit more. Actually, I have my papers. This is what I had in my brain, and that's what I'm going to use. Okay, that right there. That's what I was thinking about. So I'll talk about that. So I wanted to, here's my photos. So I wanted to talk about, as I was getting out this warm and cozy, and I might have mentioned this in another video, but when you are playing with a collection and then you're using it in conjunction with a paper pad, you know what you run into? You run into this right here. Look at the different variation in color. This is much more rich in tone. This is very faded, not as bold, not as rich in color. And then this is what I really ran into, because this was what I was going to use. And then I was like, ugh. I don't know if my camera will pick up the difference, but that is night and day difference versus the sheet you pay 99 cents for versus what comes in a paper pad. So, you know, for me, I'm doing a 2-page layout, but because I'm working with this themed album, you know, that I'm breaking apart, I have to consider that, you know. Yeah, it's just something, you know. I love the convenience and the affordability of a pad, but this pad is nothing compared to this 99-cent sheet. So it's just something to consider when you're thinking about buying supplies, when you're dealing with a big trip or a big event. Just something you have to consider, okay? Sometimes your paper pads, American Crafts is known for that, will not match up with your individual sheets. So I had talked about that in one of our paper pad parties. So of course, you know, we're talking about Scottish plaids and things like that. And so for the longest time, I got this question many months ago when I first started my channel. What was the difference between tartan, plaids, and checks and things like that? So in a couple of days, there will be a video that we're going to absolutely learn what's the difference between tartan and plaid and checks and things like that. Okay, and I was absolutely going to include it in this video, but it ended up being about 20 minutes. So it is now its own video. So even though we're going to be playing with this Scottish plaid tartan today, we are going to talk more about that in detail in another video coming up in a few days. So keep an eye out for that. Okay, chit chat, I know. Okay, so I broke out my Warm and Cozy Jen Hatfield collection, and this is what I'm going to play with for this layout. Okay, now let me break out my papers. Here are my photos. Okay. Now, it's a 2-page layout, so you 2-page gals know what you have to do right off the bat. Yes, and then you wonder why sometimes we have to buy a lot of paper. Right there, I had to have 2 of this. I'm so glad I had 2 of these, because if I was going to buy one and rely on the paper pad, it would not have worked, okay? And then, you know, I have to have background, so I'm doing a 2-page spread. Yeah, so that's why we have to have a lot of paper. I will never apologize for buying paper. No. Okay, so that is that. Okay, I already have my prompt. It's going to be about this. Actually, this was the photo that came to mind because in that Brigadoon, it was all about a hunting trip and you got lost, and I had this video or this photo in my mind. And so I thought maybe I'd title it, Where Are We? Because all 3 of these lovely people in my life, they were all using binoculars, and they didn't even know they were doing it. It was just a fluke that I had just turned around and snapped that photo, because neither one of them, my little girl knew what these 2 guys were doing, but the 2 guys didn't even know that's what they were doing. So it was a fun little happy accident for that photo. So of course, I have my Jen Hatfield papers, okay, and this is called a green plaid, but it's almost, well, it's a plaid, okay. You'll see more about that. And then this beautiful wood grain, okay, and that's called Log Cabin. That is the B-side, okay. So I was thinking that maybe I would stretch these papers, because I do have an entire mini album that I'm going to be converting to 12x12 papers, 12x12 layouts, but we'll see what we come up with, okay? And so then, of course, I decided to pick out some alphas because I'm dealing with 7 photos, okay? And here are the 2 that I can show, okay? And these will be my other photos. I definitely I saw this pop of yellow, so I thought, well, I'll play off that yellow. So I'm going to be dealing with brown and this green plaid and this yellow. Okay, I thought that would be pretty. Okay. And so, of course, you know, we're going to talk about getting lost or where are we, that type of thing. And so I pulled out some alphas, and this is what I'm going to play with. Of course, I, you know, broke out some thickers and some alphas in the wood grain, and then more wood grain and there's some craft, and there's some yellow. So between all of them, and this is one of those type of days where I want to play. I don't have time, but I'm thinking about scrapbooking. I honestly think about scrapbooking every day. Okay, so I came back at one point in time during the day. I came out and picked my papers, and then another time I came back and picked out my alphas, and that's how I do it. Okay, I don't have time just to sit and play. So those little spurts of time do add up, and that's how you can create some pages. Okay, so what will I do for a sketch? I'm not going to do a sketch because I have 7 photos and I'm doing a 2-page spread. So it's going to just basic, I'm going to do some wallpapering, and just my photos are going to land where they are because I'm using 7 in a 4x6 size. I don't have a lot of play with that, okay? I'm just going to have my title and do some embellishment clusters. And so it kind of doesn't have to be a fast page, but I have some other things coming on the channel I need to work on. So it's not like I can spend 4 hours on this. Okay, so what will I do for embellishments? Well, you know what I did? I broke out my color drawers, okay? And so what I have is I have my yellow and my green, okay? Because I'm playing, that's the colors I'm playing with, okay? My green and my brown and my yellow, okay? And that is what I'm working with. I don't know if that's all in frame, okay? And there is my inspiration right there. Okay, so when I had the wood grain and the green, of course the plaid was a load prompt, and then mixed with my photos had that yellow. That's where that pop of yellow came from. And so when you see that in a photo, I try not to work with more than 3 colors on a layout, so that's what I'm going to work with. And I pulled out these little drawers. Of course, I have die cuts, and I also have lump and bump to go with all these, and so these are the ones I'm going to play with. And this is all I'm going to pull. This right here, that's all I'm going to pull for this layout. I have no sketch and I have no kit, but these are the supplies. Again, it doesn't take me very long to gather supplies because I want to spend the time creating the page. Okay, so that was probably a little bit of chit chat, but that's the load prompt. So fun to work with these load prompts. Okay, so fun to take the Scottish plaid and about something about a hunting trip or a place you got lost, things like that. Okay, so that's what we're going to talk about. So come back and we're going to have a finished 2-page spread. Okay, hold on. Okay, I thought I would pop back in a little bit and show my middle process because I've been getting some questions if I could show some more of my middle process. And so this is the middle process of my page. I have my background, I have my Scottish plaid, I have it trimmed down, and I use my corner rounder. And so I have nothing adhered, nothing at all. And so you can see that my photos are on top of the mats that I'm going to use. And this is going to be my photo placement, okay? Because for me, when I am working on a page, my photo placement, once I get some things cut down, is my absolute main priority, because that is my main thing, is my photos. And I think we would all agree with that. And so this is where my 7 photos are going to go. My title is going to go here. And of course I have that on wax paper. And I have that here. And I just moved it. It normally would just be laying right here, but I moved it because I did a little bit of stamping and I thought I would show that. So this is where my title is, and then everything I think I may use on the right page is here in this little cluster, okay? And so that is what I do when I use these little drawers and these little boxes and bins. I just pull everything out that I want to play with and I just lay them here. And so then basically what I'm doing is I'm just narrowing my choices, and then what I think I'm going to use, I will put on that wax paper and just keep playing and just keep layering things. Yes, that is just what I do. That is the fun process for me. So when I was working on this left-hand page here, now you have to remember I am working solely by color. I have no themed, no outdoor or sportsman type embellishments other than my background papers. And so I had just said that recently, that for me, my paper is my main embellishment. And so everything else, that's why I think I can scrap by color so much, is because my paper creates my mood and feel. Everything else just comes along for the ride. Yes. And so since I am playing just by color, that is what I'm using. And so I wanted to show that my title is going to go here because it's going to say, where are we? To go with the load prompt of being lost and things like that, and to go in conjunction with this awesome photo here. And so I wanted to show that I found this in my yellow bin. It goes with the colors go perfect. The mood feel goes perfect with my layout, but it says for the love, with the love of family. And of course it was family together, but that's not what I want. And so then I found a Kaisercraft die cut, and of course it says something about treasure, and that's not what I want. So I'm covering up that, and I'm going to cover up that. And so then I found a sticker that says, it's from My Mind's Eye, and it says journey and has a map because we had to travel to get to this place. So I am covering up that sentiment. I'm covering up that sentiment in order to showcase that sentiment. And so don't be afraid to do that. Don't be afraid to use your embellishments purely just by the shape or the color or the design and cover up that sentiment and make it fit your page. And so then, of course, in my green box, I had a lot of these leaves and stems already. They were already in there. So I'm just going to make a little bit of a cluster, and that will probably be the only cluster I have on my left page because it'll make a statement. And then I decided that I was going to add some flowers. Now I want to talk about that for a minute because I do get some questions about this. So in my green box, of course, was one of these flowers. I don't even know who they're by. And so this is what I say sometimes in your space, not everything has to be in your face, because just as long as you have a representation. So in this green box was one of these flowers. Well, I knew I wanted 3 or an odd number, so I just went to my flower box and got that. So again, the representation was here, but not every flower I owned was in that drawer. So does that make sense? So I just knew to go grab my flower box, and I've had that, it's just in a photo box and they're organized by color. Pulled them out in like less than a minute. I had what I needed. And so what I did was I ripped the ball off because I'm going to do some stamping on a flower. And so I ripped that ball off because you can't stamp with that hard ball. And plus that's a little bit lump and bump. I don't want that. And so then what I did was I got out my stamp press and a Hero Arts stamp set. And this is called Many Dots, I think. Yes, Many Dots. And so then I simply took my platform, easy peasy lemon squeezy. I used some removable adhesive, put it on the back of that because I knew I might have to stamp more than once and I didn't want my flower to move. And there's no way to use magnets when you're using something this tiny or this bulky. So I just used some removable adhesive, and I think I can lay this down. I don't like to do anything with ink on top of my photos. So let me just move that. Okay. And so I just, again, use some removable adhesive. And that is basically what I use removable adhesive for, is when I'm making embellishments and things like that. And I put it exactly in the middle, my right here, the 3 and the 3, stuck it right there with some removable adhesive, and then I inked it up. And that's how I did that. And so this is what I got. I'll bring that forward. This is what I got with those. And so I used this image right here that reminded me of Play It, again, with that load prompt. Can't say enough about that load prompt. Yes, and that is what I got out of those. Okay, easy peasy. It's taking me more long to tell you what I did than to actually do it. Okay, didn't take very long. Okay, and so I wanted to show what happened with my ink, because what ink I used was a Prima chalk ink. Okay, so let me move that for a minute. And this is what happened. This is the first time this has ever happened to me. So let me know if this has ever happened to you, and what did you do? Look what happened to my Prima chalk ink. And this was a beautiful color. I think it's called Blue Jeans. Let me double check. Oh, it's called Farmer Jeans. Okay, beautiful blue. But look what happened. That bottom of that felt pad completely popped off of that. Has anybody ever else had that happen? And what did you do? Did you just throw it away? Or I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to salvage that, because it's not very old. I mean, as far as I've had it for a few years, but I haven't used it that much. So I think I'm going to strategically put it back together, because this is the part I used. Even though that ripped off, that pad, part of that foam pad ripped off, I still had ink loaded on that, and that's how I got my inking. So, has that ever happened? You know, now I will say that these Prima chalk inks, you know, they look like a little iron, of course, as cute as a button. They're really good for inking, but I think that these pads really don't hold up to when you're inking on the edge, like of a photo or a piece of paper. I think they get gnawed up pretty quick. So I don't know if I can turn this over without getting... See how they get gnawed up pretty quick? I don't know. I'm going to try to salvage that. I mean, does anybody have any suggestion? I mean, I don't want to throw it away. It's still got plenty of ink on it. So let me know. But that is my middle process. And let me see if I can find a baby wipe. Yes, can you imagine? That's what happened. So that is my middle process, and I will keep, that's all the stamping I'm going to do, okay? And this is one of those things I know years ago that I would never have done this because I did not have my stamps or my inks organized in a quick manner. So I just wanted to say that. That's when you start playing around with things, when you have them organized in a way that you can access them quickly, put them away quickly, and then you have options. So that's what I wanted to show. That's a little bit of my middle process, and I will come back, inky fingers and all, with a finished page. Okay, hang on. Okay, so I'm back with my 2-page layout, and for being a 2-page layout, it didn't take very long, because if you look at my layout, I used 7 4x6 photos, so of course that's the majority of my layout and my story. And also too, I used a block design, and I'll talk about that just a minute. And so my main embellishment is my paper, and my paper is my background. So that's how quick a 2-page layout can be done, and I'll talk about that in just a minute. But the collection I used was a collection from 2016 called Jen Hatfield, Warm and Cozy, and you can tell very rustic, very outdoor, just a lovely, lovely line. Now I will tell you, when I sat down here to play with this page, I thought, oh well, you know, I need to come up with a design where I can stretch these papers. And then I caught myself and I said, Janet, you bought them, so use them. And so I did not try to figure out a design in order to stretch these papers. I used my papers, because in this 2-page layout you can clearly see where my pattern paper, and the load prompt was a Scottish plaid, which love that, is that this pattern paper is my main embellishment, and it creates my mood and feel, and it emphasizes my story. So that's a 3 for 1. You can't get any easier than that, and you can't get any faster than that. And so on this 2-page layout, I definitely have 7 photos spanned across, and they will be in the 4x6 format. My mats are just a tad bigger than the 4x6. Other than these 2 right here, I wanted to see this plaid right here in between these 2, so I had to cut a little sliver off of that. But my 4x6 photos will go right on top of these mats, and they will be matted, so easy peasy. Now what I did here is, on the left and the right, I used this wood grain. And what was that called, if anybody wants to know, because I know some of you have this collection. It is Log Cabin. This is Log Cabin Beautiful by that Warm and Cozy line by Jen Hatfield. And then in the Scottish green plaid was called Green Plaid in that Warm and Cozy line. And so this plaid is about a 9.5 by a 10.5, and then all I did was simply use my corner rounder on 2 of these, and I took my straight cut to the inseam of this 2-page layout, and so then that's how you get the spread, okay? And I have a photo corner here, or a corner rounder and a corner rounder here, and so then that just looks like, you know, one continuous piece. And of course on my left it's shifted in more because I needed more room over here because I have 4 photos here. And so then of course I just took my title, nothing fancy, adhered it down, of course with my wonderful tacky glue by Scotch, yes. And I will also have information listed below. A lot of people have been asking me about these applicators and where I got them. They do not come with this Scotch tacky glue. You have to buy this FineLine applicator, and some will fit those bottles and some won't, so pay attention to which ones you buy, and I'll have the information linked below. And then of course here I had showed where I took 3 embellishments, layered them on top, and I got some inking on some flowers, add some die cuts that were already in my color bins, quick, simple, and just a couple enamel dots. And these are tips of my leaves are not adhered down and will not be adhered down even when I put my photo, because then it just adds to some movement and it coincides with my photo that I'm going to put right here. Love how that looks. Absolutely love how that looks. And again, a couple little word stickers that say, "Are we lost?" and "Did you hear a bear?" and that type of thing. All about the load prompt, Brigadoon, that musical, and of course, "Are we lost?" that type of thing. And that's why my title says, "Where are we?" Absolutely. And of course, 4 photos are going to go here on the right. And then down here, I have a cluster here. And I played off of this yellow, and I didn't finish that thought in a previous segment. When you have a color in your photos from an event or a trip, whatever, and that color pops out at you, then use that color to your benefit and use that to as part of your color scheme on your mood and feel. And so I did not have any yellow as far as in that collection, and of course with the Scottish plaid, the green and the wood grain. So I took a cue off of this photo. Oh, I see I have to adhere something down here. And see, anything from those stickers, you have to add additional adhesive. But anyways, the thought that I wanted to finish, this yellow popped out at me in the photo, so I went ahead and used that as a cue for a color to add on my page, and absolutely my embellishments, so you can see. Okay, and so then of course my photos will all just get adhered here. Down here was just, again, more elements that I used from my color bins. And then also too, I say this all the time, when you don't know what to do, look what you already did. And I had worked on this, so I just brought some repetitive elements over here, the flower, the die cuts, a sticker, some craft, that type of thing, a word sticker, and that's all I did was just repeat that. And then up here, my photo will go here, and this is just temporarily adhered. This is my journaling block, but it will go on top of this, and I have some dead space on that photo, so my journaling is actually going to go on top of that photo. And then I have a tiny, tiny, tiny little cluster here of 3 little elements that complete my visual triangle because of that pop of yellow. So if you see on my 2-page spread, I have a yellow here, I have yellow here, and I added 1 little yellow enamel dot to get in that visual triangle of that yellow. Same with green. I have a tiny, tiny little forest green enamel dot because I just wanted to complete that visual triangle. As I was saying before 3 phone calls, is that this tiny, tiny little cluster up here is just a Tim Holtz paper clip and 2 little enamel dots, but yet it completes my visual triangle. And so when you're working on visual triangles and clusters, and we'll be talking more about that in the upcoming year, is that they do not have to be mega, they do not have to be honking, they can be whatever size you want when you're working on that visual triangle, and we'll talk more about that. So I think that is what I have for this 2-page layout, and I love that I use this load prompt because I would not have taken this 2-page layout in the manner in which I did, which is why I love the load event. You all know that. I love the load event because I would not have used this title. I would not have used, I might have used this Scottish plaid, but I know that I definitely would not have gotten out an ink and also a stamp set and put plaid design on top of these flowers. Would not have done that. That's why I like the load event. And so there again is that my 2-page layout. And so upcoming in just a few days, we're going to be talking about plaid in more in depth because that was going to be included in this video. Got to be too long, but we're going to break down the difference between tartan, plaid, and check of this beautiful design when it comes on pages and where some of those things originated. Just a little bit of chit chat, a little bit of fun, a lot of learning. Yes, so that will be up on Saturday, so hop back over for that. So that is all I have for this 2-page layout. Absolutely love the prompt that Sue gave us for the Brigadoon. And did you a time when you have gotten lost or that type of thing? So break out some Scottish plaid. Yes, perhaps talk about a layout, record the story by the time you got lost, or like a lot of the ScrapHappy members, if you love the Outlander series and the movie and the books, maybe do a layout about that. Yes, record the story. Okay, that's all I have for today, and hop back over and get some more plaid. Love plaid. Okay, and that will be happening on Saturday. So that's all I have for today. Come back to RTS because you never know what we're going to learn. Bye.